Hi, my name is Emma,
Hi, I'm Michael.
Hi, I'm Pearl.
and welcome educators to today's training. We'll be exploring how we can thoughtfully integrate AI into classroom practice while honoring the complexity and sensitivity of Indigenous histories. As many of our students turn to tools like Gamma or ChatGPT to generate content quickly, it becomes increasingly important that they learn to approach AI critically rather than accepting its output at face value. So, in this teacher training session, we're going to examine how AI can be used as a starting point for inquiry, an opportunity for students to identify inaccuracies, recognize biases, and think carefully about cultural representation. We'll also model strategies you can use to guide students through ethical decision making when AI appears authoritative but falls short. Our goal is to help you feel prepared to facilitate meaningful conversations about AI, support students in developing responsible digital literacy, and ensure that your teaching practices continue to uphold respect, accuracy, and cultural integrity. Let's begin. So, a little bit about our project. The project offers a practical, classroom ready prototype lesson plan and ethical checklist that supports teachers in leading ethical, AI enhanced learning experiences in Indigenous history. Rather than positioning AI as a source of reliable knowledge, the design uses AI generated slides as material for students to critique, revise, and improve. The aim is to help students understand how AI functions, where it falls short, particularly with culturally sensitive or trauma linked topics, and how human judgment must guide its use. The prototype includes the structured lesson plan that can be adapted to any grade level from grade 7 to 12 and any curriculum area within history, geography, social studies, or where else you see fit, and an ethical AI evaluation checklist that includes guiding questions. And then we'll also go into an example student workflow. Through these tools, educators can help students analyze AI output for accuracy, cultural respect, and narrative bias, and then rebuild that content using authentic Indigenous sources. Ultimately, the project empowers educators to promote deep critical thinking, AI literacy, and culturally grounded learning while reinforcing the ethical engagement must remain at the center of any classroom use of AI.
Problem statement. Yeah, as AI tools such as Gamma, ChatGPT, and other automated content generator became widely available to students, educators face a growing challenge. How might we design AI-supported learning experiences that enhance efficiency without compromising students' critical thinking, creativity, and deep understanding? This challenge become especially significant in teaching Indigenous history because this subject require cultural sensitivity, contextual accuracy, trauma-informed practices, and ethic and responsible engagement. AI systems are known as to produce inaccurate, biased, or cultural insensitive outputs, which risks reinforce colonial narrative or misinforming students. Many teachers want to incorporate AI into their practice, but lack of clear framework to do so. Our intended users, this design serves middle school and high school educators in history, social studies, and indigenous studies who seek practical, ethical, and pedagogically sound way to incorporate AI into their teaching. And now I'm going to tell the design rationale, why the design works this way. This lesson plan and AI use checklist, which we're going to share with you today, we create the lesson plan and AI use checklist. Essentially, we want to help teachers and students use AI not as just a shortcut, but as a catalyst for critical thinking, ethic reasoning, and a deeper disciplinary learning. This design deliberately incorporates multiple AI learning orientations. First, learning with AI. Students use Gamma to generate the initial slide deck Indigenous history topic, the AI output is treated as a first draft, not as an authoritative source. Students work collaboratively to interrogate the content for accuracy, bias, cultural sensitivity. Second one, learning about the AI. Students explicitly learn how AI systems work, how they train, why they sometimes reproduce biases, where they commonly fall short in representing indigenous knowledge. This develops critical AI literacy and helps students understand why technology cannot replace contextual human knowledge. The third one is about learning beyond AI. Students use human judgment to improve or reject AI-generated materials. They apply disciplinary thinking, cultural awareness, and trauma-informed approaches to create a final product that is grounded in human-centered knowledge creation. I'm going to talk about underlying assumptions. We have several underlying assumptions in this design. The first one, teacher want to use AI but lack a clear ethical frameworks. During our lesson plan and AI use checklist, we're going to provide ethical frameworks for educators and for students. Students also benefit from structured tools, checklists, guiding questions, comparison rubrics to notice and assess AI-generated inaccuracy. AI can also enhance learning only when paired with critical interrogation, not just blind acceptance. Students need to critically uh, evaluate those AI outputs. Indigenous history require rigorous accuracy and culturally responsible pedagogy, an area where AI is most vulnerable to error. That's why they need our lesson plan and AI use checklist. Last but not least, the act of reviewing, challenging, and correcting AI content foster deeper learning than either manual creation alone or uncritical AI use.
Okay, so now we're going to go on to the lesson plan. Okay. So here we have a lesson plan created. So in the beginning, we see what curricular strand. So here I put you could either do social studies, history, or you could do geography, science, whatever curricular area you needed. It could be applied or changed to grades 7 through 12. The topic is evaluating AI generated content on Indigenous histories. And the duration could be as much as you like. Again, this is a adaptable lesson plan, but it could be around 1 to 2 class periods. So the next area of this lesson plan is specific curriculum expectations. So here I put in a grade 10 history example. So the first one being A1.3, assess the credibility of sources and information relevant to their investigations. So this could be when the students are assessing the resources created by AI. Are they by Indigenous authors? Are they credible? All those kind of examples. Then we move into big ideas. So, what are the big ideas of this assignment? We want AI generated information is not always accurate, culturally sensitive, or complete. Indigenous histories require respectful, trauma informed, and precise representation. And students must develop the ability to question, evaluate, and revise AI generated content. Then we have concepts and skills. So these are what the students are going to be gaining throughout the lesson. We're going to be promoting critical thinking, identifying bias and inaccuracies, evaluating ethical and cultural implications of AI, historical analysis, research and revising, and responsible digital citizenship. Next, we have our learning goals. These can also be student co-created, but sometimes it's great to have them visual for the students while going through the assessment. So for the learning goals, students will be able to critically assess AI-generated content for historical accuracy and cultural sensitivity, identify and explain inaccuracies, biases, or culturally inappropriate elements within the AI-generated slides, revise AI-generated content to create an accurate, respectful, and culturally responsible presentation, and understand the limitations and ethical implications of using AI for sensitive historical topics. The next component is assessment. So this is different examples of how you could assess student learning. So the first one is assessment for learning. So this is ongoing throughout the assignment, where it's going to be teachers' observations during discussions about AI. These can be one-on-one conversations with the students, completion of the checklist, and then guided questioning to help students deepen their critical thinking. So you as the educator can ask critical thinking questions to the group as a whole. Assessment as learning is more directed at having the students assess their learning. So the students will reflect on what they noticed. Students justify their revisions on the slideshow, explaining how changes improved cultural sensitivity or historical accuracy. And you can also include a exit reflection. So have the students answer, what did you learn about AI's limitations? How did analyzing the AI content help deepen your understanding of Indigenous histories? And lastly, if they're working individually or in a group, you can complete a peer or self-assessment using a simplified version of the checklist. And lastly, assessment of learning. This is going to be your summative assessment. So final revised slideshow demonstrates accurate, respectful, and culturally responsible representation of Indigenous histories. Summative evaluation of students' ability to identify and correct inaccuracies or culturally inappropriate histories. And the presentation or written paragraph summarizing how AI should be used responsibly when studying Indigenous histories. Next, we have our material. So this is everything we'll need for the lesson plan. So of course, we're going to need computers or tablets with internet access to gain access to Gamma. Gamma AI slideshow tool. Most schools should have Gamma provided for free, so keep that in mind. Next, we will have the ethical AI evaluation checklist, which is connected to the lesson plan and created for you. Assess access to credible Indigenous sources, so articles, videos, library resources, etc. And lastly, a slideshow editing software, whether it's Google Slides, PowerPoint, whatever your school prefers. And now this is how you're going to introduce the lesson to the students and how you're going to go about each step. So first, we want to activate the students' thinking. So this is our minds on activity. So you're going to begin by displaying a flawed AI generated slide about an Indigenous topic. You're going to ask the students, this looks polished, so what's wrong with it? And you're going to have this guide the students toward noticing the inaccuracies, stereotypes, or missing voices. You're going to keep prompting the students, have them brainstorming. Next is our action. So this is the purpose of this lesson. So you're going to discuss why Indigenous histories require accuracy, respect, and cultural sensitivity. Explain that AI often misrepresents or oversimplifies these histories. Next, the students are going to pick a topic. They can pick a topic such as the Indian Act, residential schools, treaty rights, Métis resistance, Indigenous knowledge systems, and it can go above to Indigenous histories, Indigenous education, and more. Next, the students will go on Gamma and generate an initial slideshow. You can help them with the prompting with their topic. And you need to emphasize to the students that this is a draft, not the final version. Once they have their slideshows ready to go, we then want them to start the evaluation process. They're going to go through the checklist. So there's inaccuracies, cultural insensitivity, missing Indigenous voices, examples of colonial bias, trauma-related concerns, and you could add an extension activity of having students come up with their own critical thinking questions. Lastly, revision work. So now the students are going to be correcting, expanding, and replacing the AI content on the slides. They're going to be using credible Indigenous resources to support changes, and the teacher is going to circulate and conference and guide deeper thinking throughout this process. And finally, we have our consolidation. So this is the wrap up of the assignment. So we want to start with a whole class debrief. You're going to discuss common issues that the students found in the AI generated slides, and you're going to highlight how these issues connect to broader themes of AI bias and the importance of human judgment. Next, we're going to do sharing revisions. So you're going to invite students or groups to share their slides and how they were significantly improved and revised. And you can ask, what did the AI get wrong? How did your revision improve historical accuracy or cultural respect? Next, we want a critical thinking reflection. You're going to ask the students, they could either, and you probably want this written down. Why is it important to question AI generated content, especially when learning about Indigenous histories? And how did revising the AI content deepen your understanding of the topic? Lastly, the key takeaways, the teacher summary for all students. AI can be a helpful starting point, but it is not an authority. Indigenous histories require respectful, accurate, trauma-informed representation. Students play an active role in ensuring the ethical, responsible use of AI tools. And the last part of this lesson plan is differentiation. So how will I differentiate for students with different learning needs? So I have a few examples here about different complexities of topics based on your students' learning needs. You can have visual supports for the checklist, um, allow for groupings or individually. You could have audio, video, or curated text accessible for the students. And you also want to extend learning for advanced students through deeper analysis and comparisons of AI. So this could be extra work. And also within differentiation, you're going to include if your students have IEPs or behaviors and how you're going to adjust your lesson plan to fit their learning goals and their learning needs. And lastly, these are all the resources that are needed and come with this lesson plan. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy trying this lesson.
I'd like to walk you through a simple checklist for using AI responsibly when creating slides about Indigenous history. When creating slides, the first priority is ensuring the accuracy of the information. This means checking that all dates, events, policy, and key figures are correct. It also requires going beyond basic facts. Our slides should help students understand policy impact and the importance of this history today. Our goal is to present a complete picture, background, perspectives, consequence, and relevance to the present. Indigenous history must be told with Indigenous voices at the center. This could include calls from elders, knowledge keepers, authors, or community members. The content pays attention to real stories, real voices, and real contributions. It avoids broad statements that turn people into one single idea. We show Indigenous people as whole, complex, and strong with their own identities and strengths instead of only showing pain or loss. This creates a more respectful and truthful picture. The perspectives we use should be directly linked to the topic to support a clear and meaningful understanding. Depending on our topic, this might include community perspectives, historical records, or government policies. Good teaching material incorporate more than one viewpoint. The aim is to avoid a single story and to show both the past and how it connects to today. It helps students see the complexity of history and understand it more deeply. Everything AI produces should be checked against reliable material, books, academic articles, reputable websites, or guidance from specialists. If something feels unclear or questionable, it's safer to remove it. The information should be compared with several trustworthy references to see whether they agree. By doing this, we make sure that we present the correct content. Whenever we use AI, it's important to remember that AI gives us initial ideas, not finished work. We should always label AI-generated content clearly so students and colleagues know where it came from. And we need to make sure we are respecting privacy, copyright, and ethical guidelines while using it. Images plays a strong role in how students understand history. Choose visuals that correctly represent the nation or community you are teaching about. Avoid images that may be inappropriate or triggering. Whenever possible, we use visuals created by Indigenous artists, archives, or community organizations. Finally, language matters. The language used should be clear, correct, and respectful. It should describe people and cultures in a factual, unbiased way. Indigenous names, terms, and ideas should be used correctly and explain when necessary, so they are understood in the right context. At the same time, we avoid stereotypes, assumptions, or broad generalizations, as these can cause harm and oversimplify complex histories.
Okay, so here is a slideshow created by Gamma, and what we did is we put a prompt in wanting a Indigenous Histories example from grade 10 Ontario curriculum, and it came up with the Canadian Indigenous History, A Journey Through Time. And so now we could look through the slides, start evaluating it. So right away on slide 4, I noticed that this image could be considered cultural appropriation. It might not be appropriate. So we would have students go through the checklist, notice this, and when they go to revise the slideshow, choose a different image. So we can go through the slides again. So there's lots of facts, lots of information. But one thing I'm kind of noticing as we go through is it seems like it's a lot of facts, but not a lot of sources or information from Indigenous peoples or Indigenous voices. So when we want students to go in and see this, and a way that they can revise is they will go into their resources and gain academic articles or interviews or anything along to get Indigenous voices included within the slideshow.
Okay, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye.